Hi everyone, we're going to get started. All right, just tell me if this is working. No? It's not working. I'll get that. I just want to know how this is.
Okay, it's on. Just hold it close to your mouth.
I need those. Is it working now? Hi everybody and welcome. I'm Julie Gortze and I am founder of RN New England. I'm also a nurse and I have a lot of experience in many care problems with patients and families. I worked in acute care for a while and I've been working in patient advocacy with rare disease patients for the past few years. Can't hear it? Can you hear me now? All right. All right, so as I was saying, I'm a nurse and I've worked with many care problems in the community with patients with rare and complex disorders. There are many care problems out there that RNE is trying to address, trying to spread awareness of, but the one that we're concentrating on for this weekend with our two-day conference is the one about communication problems. Things that we see when patients and families and medical teams are trying to communicate with each other to bring the best quality of life for patients and families. And many of the care problems, the communication issues can cause things such as delayed medical care. We can see misdiagnoses and incorrect treatments with these patients and families. And of course, then we go to the extremes when patients and families are accused of having something like Munchausen by proxy or medical child abuse going on in their family. I do want to say that RNE recognizes that medical child abuse and Munchausen by proxy is very real, and with the families who are affected, this is very devastating, of course, to the child. But that's not really what we're here about this weekend. Even though we recognize that, the thing is we also see that there are way too many accusations of medical child abuse in Munchausen and misdiagnosis of psychological disorders to try to explain symptoms. So there are things that a group of us have been doing over the past few years. We've been trying to research information, working with others in the community, other organizations, state officials, child protection services, trying to find a way to bring solutions to this problem. One of the things that RNE is trying to do, and that's what we're here for these next 2 days, is to bring some education, bring the information to you, so you'll be able to use that as tools as you have to deal with the the medical problems. If you end up, say in the emergency room, or you need to deal with physicians who don't understand what's going on. We've been working with a great bunch of people. As you'll see, all the speakers here that are here today are people who have been working the past couple of years trying to find these solutions, and I will tell you that they are a passionate group of people who want to help those with the rare disease problems. Can I just ask, how many of you here today are patients or caregivers of someone with a rare disease? Okay. How many of you work in another patient advocacy organization? Okay. How many of you are medical professionals, nurses, physical therapists, physicians? Okay. Is there anybody that I've missed? I'm just trying to get a good idea of who's here. Is there anyone here from Child Protection Services? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so I want to welcome you here. I hope that you get a lot out of this. I want you to remember too, you're not just getting it for yourself. Any information that you get over these next 2 days, you'll have the capability to share that with others and hopefully be able to help keep another family safe by sharing the information. So always remember that it's not, just about one person. It's about sharing that and bringing the awareness throughout the whole rare disease community. That said, now I have someone that I want to introduce. We have a board member through RNE who, we formed RNE earlier this year, and a group of people came together, and John has been an absolute wonderful asset for RNE, and he has been extremely passionate about the rare disease community. And he wants to come up and say a few words. John has worked in the pharma industry. I'm going to let him explain a little bit more about that. We have this conversation all the time. I'm sorry, I just can't explain it. But he brings a wealth of information with things of working with the FDA, clinical trials, and if you have any questions about that at all, he's the guy to talk to. So I'd like to introduce you to John Campbell. I think I took your papers.
So I want to thank Julie for that kind introduction. It was very interesting how she said that I want to come up and give a talk here. So first word is good morning. One more time. Good morning. All right. I'm going to ask for the lavalier just as I talk here. So I think also I'd like to recognize someone who's handing me the lavalier now, who I admire greatly, who works countless hours and overcomes an incredible number of obstacles. It really is amazing to me. Some of the obstacles are self-imposed. However, she takes everything in stride, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to work with Julie in Rare New England and just to know her as a friend. So let's give her a great round of applause. So this would not happen today without Julie's incredible tenacity and passion. So I think 3 words. I want to start off with 3 words: courage, knowledge, and communication. So remember those 3 words: courage, knowledge, communication. So as Julie said, I have a long time history, longer than I'd like to admit, working within the pharmaceutical industry, mostly in clinical drug development, developing protocols for many diseases. For the longest time, I was with GlaxoSmithKline, very large company, as you know, and a medium-sized company. But in 2012, I had the opportunity, one of my clients offered me a full-time spot for a while, and that was Stealth Biotherapeutics in Newton, Mass, right here. And it was that time that I was first sort of introduced to the rare disease world and the rare disease patient and the rare disease advocate, and also to some very important people in my life today, both professionally and as friends, being Dr. Corson as well as Dr. Kara. And, Stealth is involved in trying to research and bring a drug to market for mitochondrial disease, specifically mitochondrial myopathy, and that so far is going well. But in the design of that trial and that program, I got to meet Dr. Corson, Dr. Kara, and a number of other mitochondrial disease specialists, Amy Goldstein, Richard Haas, and many others, Bruce Cohen. And I was just blown away with, how difficult it was from a clinician standpoint. Too many patients, not enough time, and it started me down this road of really being committed to the rare disease space. I also was very much overwhelmed with, the admiration of the patients who suffer from mitochondrial disease specifically here, but all rare diseases. And there was one defining moment that we had, the first trial that we did at Stealth, called the Power trial. For the very first patient visit, the first time we ever gave the research drug to a patient, I was there at Children's Hospital, Akron Children's Hospital in Akron. And that very first patient, it completely changed how I thought about drug development and what I was doing, because and I'll never forget it. The passion that the patient had with respect to trying to do some very difficult things on the exercise bike and having her respiration monitored, and it changed me. And then when the father of this patient came to me, 80 years old, in tears, thanking me for what we were doing, wow, no pressure, right? Hopefully this works. But I've carried that moment with me since then and tried to make sure that professionally I stayed in the rare disease space, sometimes at some financial sacrifices. But I think it's worth it, and I'm glad to be a part of RNE and do what I can do to help. So the three words, again, are courage, knowledge, and communication. And I want to talk about those each individually today with a little bit, quickly, of an analogy. So courage is what everyone has in this room, and what I experience in my immersion in the rare disease world. I don't have a person affected. I'm not affected. So I'm lucky that way. But, in my role, I get to see sort of, as an outsider, the courage of everyone here. And courage is a funny thing because it gives you the strength and the motivation to march on in the face of adversity, which we'll talk about today. But it can also be something where, is courage the soldier on the front lines that just runs ahead on his own, at his own peril? That's something that could be courage, but it's also stupid. There's a bunch of his fellow soldiers that, together they can do much better. So think about that analogy. It's teamwork, it's individual courage, but that courage is also part of a larger network, the Rare Disease Network. Knowledge. Knowledge is a great thing, and it's something that is critical if you're going to navigate the healthcare system. From my perspective, I see certain parts of it, and it's incredibly complex. There's different players, and there's different people that are involved. Each have their own roles. But knowing sort of how that process works, knowing the touch points, and what's possible, what's realistic, what's not realistic, is something that I think is important to keep in mind as we go through the program today. The third word, what was the third word? Who can tell me? Very good. Communication. So one of the things I try to do in my spare time, which is not a lot, is I fly small planes with propellers, which takes courage, but it also requires a lot of communication. And a lot of times you're flying along, and the controller, will tell you something that you're not ready for, and it will cause a deviation or something you're not ready for. And that can frustrate me. It can frustrate other people. But then I realized, well, that controller is actually trying to help me. He's trying to keep me alive, and he's trying to keep other planes that might be away from me. So I temper my frustration with the knowledge of where that person is coming from. And I think that's an important thing to understand today, is that, communication is two-way. One needs to be able to effectively communicate their situation in a healthcare setting, and then understand where the other side is coming from, so that both sides can achieve the objectives that they have, because there's two sides of that coin. And there's imbalances, and as Julie referred to, as we'll talk about today, RNE is committed to trying to right those imbalances. But those three words, courage, knowledge, and communication, are critical for a successful interaction with the healthcare system. So today's program, I think, is remarkable. I don't know that there's many advocacy groups out there with the courage to put something on like this. This is a controversial topic. Coming from a pharmaceutical company, it's scary, but it's important, I think, that this be out there and we start talking about it intelligently. We hear people's experiences from both sides of the issue. That's an important part today. So we want to hear questions, we want to hear discussion, we want to hear the speakers. In order for everyone to benefit, we want to try to make sure that things are constructive. It can be emotional, I think, for a lot of people who have had disastrous experiences, and certainly we recognize that. We've, again, encouraged questions. We'll also have cards throughout the day during the question and answer periods where you can record your question and hand it off, and we'll make sure that the presenters get it, or the panel gets your question. And that's for, if you don't want to voice it. We are recording today. The recording will be only the presenters, and the ambient, the audience will not be recorded, except during the panel discussions where that becomes necessary in order for the recording to work. Sponsors. So our sponsors today, who have really made this possible, and again, it takes courage as well to sponsor an event like this from a pharmaceutical company perspective. We'd like to recognize Shire Pharmaceuticals for providing at the platinum level a sponsorship that really helped us make this happen, as well as the KJC law firm, who provided a donation that was also very, very helpful. We also have a number of in-kind donations from many different organizations that are too numerous to mention. And also our exhibitors today, please engage and see what they have to talk about. You can learn a lot from that. And then, of course, Cardi's Furniture for allowing us to use their facility for this event. So with that, I want to thank you very much for coming out and beginning this discussion. This is a start. We think it's going to go well. There'll be glitches, but I think we'll manage through that. And we want your participation constructively again. So that's all I have. I want to introduce the first speaker. And we have Dr. Richard Bowles, who is currently the medical director at Cortigen Life Sciences. He is a pediatrician and a geneticist. He trained at UCLA Medical School for his medical training, and then a fellowship at Yale for genetics. He's going to talk to us today about the 4 N's, and we are all very much looking forward to his presentation. Dr. Bowles.